Ever since the end of Cold War Zombies, there has been one question on my mind, and that is, why does Richtofen have Samantha's snow globe of Dr. Monty's house? In the ending cutscene for The Map Forsaken, we saw on Richtofen's desk the exact same snow globe that Samantha had when she was a child. If you compare the two, they are identical, from the base to the colour of it, the patterns, and the house inside of it, which is Dr. Monty's. In the Zombies Chronicles trailers, we saw this was the snow globe that Samantha had whilst she was in Dr. Monty's house. She was holding it in her hands, she shakes it, the camera zooms in as it then begins to pan through all of these zombies maps and finishes back through Samantha's bedroom, where we see her again lying on the floor playing with the Primus and Ultimus characters with this snow globe next to her. She then places it on the ground, disappears, where another version of her, a cleansed version, walks into the room. All of that's irrelevant to this video, but what is important is, well, one, why did Samantha have a snow globe of Dr. Monty's house? Who gave this to her? And two, how did it come into Richtofen's possession? Because Samantha had this in the old multiverse. This was during the time of Black Ops 3 when Dr. Monty was still alive and his house still existed. This was Samantha's. But after the multiverse was destroyed and everything was banished to the Dark Ether, and these two children, Samantha and Eddie, then walked off into the light, into the new universe we see in Cold War, Vanguard, Modern Warfare 3, and now in Black Ops 6, how did we go from that to it now being on Richtofen's desk? So attempting to answer the first question, who even gave this snow globe to Samantha as a child and why? Well, considering it is of Dr. Monty's house, I would assume it was given to her by Dr. Monty himself. Also because we know it was him that gave Samantha and Eddie all of the other toys we see them playing with in the Origins cutscene and the Revelations cutscene. The toy versions of the Primus characters, the Ultimus characters, the Transit characters, the Ascension rocket, the Transit bus, everything you see here in this room was given to them by Monty, so we can assume he gave them this snow globe of the house itself as well. And the why, I would guess, to play with, okay, that's fine, but how did we go from it being a toy of Samantha's in Monty's house to it now being on Richtofen's desk in a new universe? Considering we know at the end of BO4 everything was banished to the Dark Ether, and we still see this, we have to assume Samantha must have had it in her possession at this exact moment in the forest at the end of BO4, when we see her standing here about to shoot Primus Nikolai to end the multiverse once and for all, and then when we see her walking into the light, into the new Cold War universe, she must have had this snow globe on her. We don't see it, we don't see a bulge coming out of her pocket, but she must have had it. There is also the case that Richtofen may have had it, Samantha may have given it to him, or he may have taken it from her when she wasn't looking and had it in his possession at this exact moment, and then kept it when he entered the new Cold War universe and has had it ever since then, growing up to this point now. Or I suppose the other scenario is, which I do think is less likely, is he did find it in the Dark Ether. It was banished there at the end of BO4, and we know the Dark Ether still exists right now. Things are leaking out of it. Somehow, Richtofen managed to obtain Samantha's snow globe of Dr. Monty's house from the Dark Ether. Again, that one to me seems less likely just because the Dark Ether is so vast. Him coincidentally coming across this tiny object again seems very unlikely, but then again, we've seen the perk machines return in the Pack-a-Punch, so maybe it's not unlikely. But if I had to give my theory here, I think Samantha still had this snow globe in her possession when she entered this new universe, and it was only after then Richtofen took it from her. We know as soon as both of them entered this new universe, they were put into orphanages. We aren't actually told if they were put into different ones. Richtofen was put into the New Horizon orphanage. Samantha may have been put into the same one, but it seems like they were split up. If that's the case, he would have had to take it from her just after they arrived here, but before they were split up. Or another point could have been years later when he interrogated her. In the middle of the Cold War zombie storyline, after Samantha escaped the Dark Ether, Richtofen had her quarantined and interrogated her. During that point, he took scans of her brain and he took her DNA samples. So if he could do that, then he could have also taken the snow globe from her. So it's not confirmed, but there are many points in the zombie storyline in this new universe and in the old multiverse when Richtofen could have taken Samantha's snow globe, which is what this is. But what this also tells us is Richtofen perhaps remembers the old timeline. As soon as Samantha and Eddie left the multiverse and entered this new one, their memory was wiped. So everything from their childhood was lost. Dr. Monty, Maxis, Nikolai, Takeo, Dempsey, everything they experienced from World at War 2 Black Ops 4 was gone. And that's confirmed to us in BO6 through radios. Richtofen suffered memory loss as a child, and so did Samantha, meaning he wouldn't have remembered who Dr. Monty was. He or Samantha wouldn't have known that the house in this snow globe that they had was actually of Dr. Monty's house. But what we aren't 100% sure on is if Richtofen regained some of those memories. We know Samantha didn't. We've heard radios from her as an adult saying she still suffers with loss of memory before the orphanage, but we haven't had that confirmed for Richtofen. And considering everything we've seen him do so far in Cold War and Black Ops 6, some of the things he said to Samantha whilst he was torturing her, and what he's trying to do right now with the Sentinel artifact, there is a suspicion that some of those old memories came back to him. And perhaps the reason why he's taken this snow globe of Dr. Monty's house from Samantha is because he has remembered that this is Monty's house. Now, why any of that would be important to him raises more suspicions. We believe at least one of the reasons why Richtofen is trying to obtain the Sentinel artifact is to bring back his family, his wife and son from the dead. The Sentinel artifact has the ability to manipulate prime materia, which was the first matter to ever exist. If he could somehow manipulate that matter to bring his wife and son back from the dead, I don't know, that may be a possibility, but that sounds way too simple for a Treyarch Zombies game, for a COD Zombie storyline. Richtofen's up to something much bigger. I don't think he only wants to bring back his wife and son, but he wants to bring back something else. What that something else is, well, could it be the old timeline? Could it be the multiverse? Could it be the cycle? And could it be Dr. Monty? Because it was Richtofen and Dr. Monty, the other version of Richtofen, but those two together created the Endless Cycle, and the Endless Cycle meant, essentially, you could never die. Or you could, but it wouldn't matter anyway, because the cycle would just reset. You'd be brought back. What if Richtofen has realised if he could somehow bring back the cycle, if he could bring back Dr. Monty and recreate that forge together, then if he does manage to bring his wife back to life, if they then become a part of a cycle, they can never die. Or if they do, being trapped in a loop, it will reset and they will be brought back. What if Richtofen has thought resurrecting his family using the Sentinel artifact and prime materia is not good enough because they are still going to die anyway later on down the line due to old age? But if he can recreate the cycle that other versions of him and Dr. Monty created, then just like the old Primus and Ultimus characters, his wife and son can live forever. That very event that killed them, the house fire, will never be possible again. Because, okay, they can die, but it won't matter because if their souls are trapped in a cycle, they'll be brought back over and over again. So I've just thought, what if the reason Richtofen has Dr. Monty's house on his desk is because he has realised Dr. Monty is the key to keeping his family alive. Dr. Monty has the ability to forge an endless cycle along with him.
This doctor, he tells me one more thing. He tells me he realizes that Dr. Monty is not inherently evil. Dr. Monty, he says, is trying to save the multiverse the safest way he knows how. By forcing us into this cycle, our story will never end. But also, his universe and his existence will be guaranteed. I can't blame him, he says. Dr. Monty is much like you and me. He just wants to survive. He doesn't want to risk his own annihilation. I tell him, well, if we are doomed to meet here again and again until the end of existence, perhaps there is something we can do to change that. He looks at me with a smile and says, I think you are right, old friend.
The next question that comes along with that, of course, is then, is Dr. Monty even still alive? We don't know, and I've done a couple of videos on this already. There is all the chance that Dr. Monty is still alive. At the end of BO4, he was banished to the Dark Ether. He wasn't killed, and whilst a lot of time has passed since then, which would affect a normal human, Monty wasn't a normal person. He was essentially a god. He had powers. He was already corrupted by the Dark Ether. He had his normal being self and then this apothecon version. So there's nothing to say Monty being trapped in the Dark Ether for an extended amount of time, for the time that he would have been in there from the end of Black Ops 4 to now in BO6, that he would have been affected. He could still be in there lurking around. At the same time, he could have also succumbed to the creatures of the Dark Ether, such as the Forsaken. We don't know if something like that could have killed him. We just don't know what happened to Dr. Monty after. It would only be speculation. But what all of this would mean is Richtofen remembers everything. If he knows of the cycle, if he knows of Dr. Monty, that would mean his memory would have had to come back. And that, I also can't say for sure. As a child, he had memory loss, but some of the things he's said and done so far as an adult would suggest that maybe he does remember all of it, or at least certain parts. Does him having Samantha's snow globe on his desk of Dr. Monty's house tell us that he remembers? Or is it as simple as he's taken this snow globe off Samantha because he can? So yeah, everything I've just said to me is so much more interesting than a lot of what we've seen so far. Imagine if Richtofen was really attempting to recreate the endless cycle to ensure that he not only brings back his wife and son from the dead, but so that they don't die ever again. And if that is the case, well, what about everyone else? Will it just be a cycle for them, or will it be for everyone and everything within the current universe? And what does that mean for everything that was a part of the multiverse that is now in the Dark Ether? Could there be the chance that Nikolai, Takio, and Dempsey would be brought back? So there we go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, hopefully you've enjoyed the video today. If you have, drop a like rating. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest content on the channel. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.